Hey guys, we're going to review the most commonly missed questions from last week's slope review quiz. So let's get back to the first slide. Okay, the first one we're going to look at is number 3. So it says, what is the slope of the line? Okay, so to determine the slope of this line, I see 2 points here and here that are already identified for us, but it would be helpful if we could find another point along the line that's at the intersection of the grid lines, and I see another point right here. Okay, so I'm going to start at this bottom point, and first of all we need to determine, is the slope of the line positive or negative? So as I move left to right, it is going up, so it's going to be a positive slope. So that's the first thing I already know. Now from here, I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's my rise. And then my run is over 1, 2, 3. So if I went up 4 over 3, the slope is positive 4/3. And remember, slope is rise over run. Okay, the next most commonly missed one was number 5, which kind of makes sense because if you miss number 3, then you would automatically miss number 5 because it went along with the same graph. So number 5 asks us for the actual equation of the line. Well, we already determined that the slope was 4/3. Okay, the other thing that we need to know in order to write the equation of this line is the y-intercept. And if you'll remember, we use the variable b to represent the y-intercept. So that simply means, where does this line intersect the y-axis? At what point? And it looks like it's right here at positive 1. So if we're using the format y equals mx plus b, the slope is 4/3. And the y-intercept is 1. So our equation would be y equals 4/3 x plus 1. Okay, the next one was number 7. What is the slope of the line? First thing, as we move left to right, it looks like this line is going down, so it's going to be a negative slope. And just like we did in the first example, they do have 2 points already identified for us, but if we could find even more, then we wouldn't have so far to travel, and then we wouldn't have a slope to be simplified, and it looks like I can use this point right here. So instead of being rise over run, because this is a negative slope, it's going to be fall over run. So I'll start at this left point right here, and we'll go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 1, 2, 3. Okay, same thing here. From this point to this point, we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 1, 2, 3. So my slope is negative 4/3. Okay, number 9 goes along with number 7. It asks for the equation of the line. So if we're using the format y equals mx plus b, we just determined that our slope was negative 4/3. Okay, now the y-intercept. So this line crosses the y-axis at 0. So there is no y-intercept. Well, I guess technically there is, but it's 0. So you could put something like y equals negative 4/3 x plus 0, but I don't really need that 0 there. So I can just leave it off, and this would be the simplest format for your final answer. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is number 13. What is the equation of the line? So we have a table here. The first thing I want to find is the slope. So I can pick 2 ordered pairs. I can think about these as ordered pairs, -6, 6, and -3, -1. So if you'll remember, slope is change in y over change in x. We also wrote it as y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if we're using that format, it's helpful to label the pieces of your ordered pair. So let's come over here and do that. So -6 6. So this would be x1, and this would be y1. And then if the other ordered pair we use is -3, -1, this would be x2, and this would be y2. So when we get ready to find the slope here, okay, we're going to have -1 is the y2 minus 6 is the y1. So that's going to be in the numerator, -1 minus 6. Then the denominator, x2 minus x1 is going to be -3 minus -6. Okay, so for our numerator, keep, change, that becomes -1 plus -6, which is -7. Then let's go to the denominator. Again, keep, change. This essentially is the same as 6 minus 3, which is 3. So -7/3 is my slope. So I'm going to put equals m because m represents the slope. So if I want to write an equation, I need two things. I need the slope and I need the y-intercept. So we have the slope already. Now to find the y-intercept, let me scroll down a little bit. Okay, we're going to use the format y equals mx plus b. So b is the variable that I need to solve for. Well, I already know the slope. I know m. I can choose any one of the ordered pairs from this table here to plug in for my x and my y value. I'm just going to use the first one just because those numbers are the smallest. Okay, so for, let's see, my y is going to be 6. So I'm going to replace y with 6. My slope was -7/3. Then I'm going to be multiplying that by x. So the x value that I'm going to use from this first ordered pair is -6. So we're multiplying by -6, which I'm going to write as -6/1. And then we still have the plus b. That's what we're going to be trying to solve for. So now let's go ahead and solve this right here. I see some cross reducing that I could do. I can change the 3 to a 1 and the -6 to a -2. So when I multiply here, -7 times -2 gives me +14/1 would be the denominator. 1 times 1 is 1. Well, 14/1 is the same thing as just 14. So let's just write that as 14. And I still have my plus b and then equals 6 on the other side. So now I have just one step left. Let's see if I can move this out of the way so I can extend the page. Okay, so my last step would be subtract 14 from both sides. These cancel out, and then that gives me -8. So I have my two pieces that I need. The slope is -7/3, and then the y-intercept is -8. So using the format y equals mx plus b, my equation would be y equals 7/3 x minus 8. Now you could also put plus -8 if you wanted to for the y-intercept part, but this would be the simplest way to write our answer. I'm sorry, was our slope negative or positive for this one? It was negative, sorry. So it was -7/3 x minus 8. Okay, so that's kind of a lengthy process. We're going to do another one in just a second. Number 14 was also commonly missed. Okay, what would be the equation of the line that passes through 5, 11 and -10, 5? Well, even though they just gave us two ordered pairs and not a whole table, we're still going to use the exact same process that we did for the previous question. So step 1 is going to be to find the slope. So let's come in and label these. The 5 would be the x1, the 11 would be the y1, the -10 would be the x2, the 5 would be the y2. So we always do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to find the slope. So that's going to be 5 minus 11 in the numerator. And then for the denominator, it's going to be -10 minus 5. Okay, 5 minus 11 is going to give us -6. Okay, then for the denominator, keep, change, change. Negative 10 plus negative 5 is negative 15. Okay, then a negative over a negative is a positive. So we can change it to a positive, and then also it can be simplified. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So my final slope is 2/5. So I'm going to put m equals 2/5. Okay, now that we know the slope, we can plug that in one of our ordered pairs to solve for the y-intercept, or b. So using slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Let's just use this first ordered pair, 5, 11. So the y is 11. The slope was 2/5. Okay, for x, we're going to use 5. We'll write it as a fraction, 5 over 1. And then we also have the plus b. When I get ready to multiply these fractions, I see that I can cross-reduce with the 5s and make them 1s. So when I solve this, 2 times 1 is 2, 1 times 1 is 1. 2 over 1 is the same thing as just 2. So I'm going to have 2 plus b equals 11, and then I have one more step left to solve for my y-intercept, which is going to be to subtract 2 from both sides. Those cancel out, so my y-intercept is 9. Now, I know my two important pieces of information to plug into my format. Y equals mx plus b. The slope, we go back up and double check, was it positive or negative? It was positive 2/5. So I'm going to replace m with 2/5 x plus, and my y-intercept was 9. So my equation would be y equals 2/5 x plus 9. So those are the most commonly missed on last week's quiz. You can do corrections and take a picture and email those to me. Thanks, guys.